Okay, Mr. Mayor, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. It's a beautiful May day in Georgian Bluffs. Approval of agenda. Is there any add-ons here today by any member or staff? Seeing none, the recommendation is that the agenda be approved as presented. Someone to move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Peter, second by Barry. Show of hands, all in favor? Peter, go ahead.
Yep.
Okay. All right, you're just showing your hand, all right. Moving off our agenda, declaration of pecuniary interest. You can clear anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. That the minutes of the Police Service Board meeting held on April 13th, 2021 be adopted. Moved by Peter, second by Barry. Any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. We have no delegations. Madam Clerk, any member of the public pose any questions today? Seeing none? We're down to correspondence. We have none. We're down to reports and recommendations. Madam Clerk, just for clarification, just so all members, including myself, understand. The reading of a motion is to put it on the floor to open discussion only. Okay, that makes that very clear. Okay, so I have a recommendation here. That report LEG 2021-15 Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Proposal be received, and that the Township of Georgian Bluffs Police Service Board hereby supports option 1 as indicated in this report, being a joint collaboration board including representatives from the Township of Georgian Bluffs, Township of Chatsworth, Municipality of Meaford, Municipality of Grey Highlands, Township of Southgate, Town of South Bruce Peninsula, Town of North Bruce Peninsula, and Saugeen First Nations, and that each participating municipality and First Nations community appoint 1 elected official to the joint board with provincial and community appointees to form 40% of membership, 20% respectively, and that this report be referred to the June 2nd, 2021 meeting of council for their information and support of option 1. I just need someone to move to put on the floor, please.
So moved. Barry.
Moved by Barry, second by Peter. Madam Clerk, I'm going to turn this over to you since it's your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to provide a brief overview prior to our discussions here today, as indicated in the report, on April 27th, all of the municipalities, being the clerks of all of the respective municipalities within the Grey Bruce detachment, met to discuss the proposal as required to be submitted to the ministry prior to June 7th. So as included in both this report and the former report considered by this board, the ministry is requesting that every detachment within the province of Ontario work together to create 1 collaborative joint board to oversee operations within each board. So in considering the Grey Bruce detachment, it would involve ourselves, the Township of Chatsworth, Municipality of Meaford, Grey Highlands, Southgate, South Bruce Peninsula, Northern Bruce Peninsula, and the Saugeen First Nation. So at said meeting, being that meeting on April 27th, all of the representatives and myself sat down and discussed what would work best for the Grey Bruce detachment. Following our discussions, we did decide to recommend option 1, being 1 joint collaborative board to oversee the entirety of the Grey Bruce detachment. This came as a recommendation both from the OPP as well as all of us being the appointed members to this a joint collaborative board that we formed to create this proposal. The Saugeen First Nation is also in favor of one joint collaborative board. And the reason for that is to have greater communication between all of the municipalities, specifically from a policing perspective. Now, as this board is aware, in 2020, we passed the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, one of which was oversaw both the Grey and Bruce counties. So we do have that plan that has been created from a collaboration perspective, being done through collaborative efforts at both the county levels and the local lower tier levels. So it is our recommendation that we move forward with the joint collaborative board being the larger of the three options to improve communication throughout the detachment and to ensure that both the Saugeen representatives, the OPP representatives, and all lower tier representatives have a voice at the same table. So I will say just one more comment, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Okay.
I just wanted to note that this report is being presented for the information of the board today. It will be presented to our council at their next meeting, being that of June 2nd. The same report that you see in front of you is being presented to councils throughout the lower tiers. So the Police Services Board today may make their recommendation to council, but ultimately council has the final say in what the proposal will look like going forward to the ministry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I just wanted to find out if you wanted to entertain questions while you go through or let you give your report first. And it looks like you've pretty well done your report. So sorry, but me from the chairs, and I would like to ask you a question first. I want you to please clarify the makeup of this large board. The 8 municipalities would each include one elected official. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes. So if I may, and I have to apologize, I did realize this morning that you don't have the most up-to-date version of the report. So I will go through what you don't see, and it's only in regards to how many provincial appointees and community appointees are on each version of the board. So in option 1, which is the option we're recommending, there will be 3 provincial appointees and 4 community appointees. Now, in your report, it does reflect 2 of each. It should be 3 and 4. That way we have an uneven number of representatives on this board. So in option 1, that would be a board of totaling at least 15 members. Now, 1 elected official from each municipality would also sit on that board, including 1 representative from the Saugeen First Nation. Mr. Mayor, did you want me to move through each option to clarify first, and then we can have our discussion?
Would you please?
Yeah,
That
no problem.
answers a lot of questions on option 1. Now, option 2, please go through it and explain how the makeup of the board would be.
For sure.
Can I just interrupt for a minute? Someone's recording this. You're allowed to record this meeting?
Yes, we record for the live streaming purposes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No problem.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
It's myself recording through the YouTube channel, just for the board's information. So in moving forward, option 2 would see 2 individual boards, one for the Grey municipalities and the second for the Bruce municipalities. This scenario would be the same as option 1. In each of the participating municipalities would have 1 elected official appointed to the board. So that would mean Georgian Bluffs, Chatsworth, Meaford, Grey Highlands, and Southgate would all have 1 elected official appointed to this board. The Saugeen First Nation would also have 1 representative. There would be at least 2 provincial appointees and at least 3 community appointees for a board that totals at least 11 members. Now, for the Bruce municipalities, the minimum amount of members that must sit on this board is 5. So to achieve that minimum, both South Bruce Peninsula and North Bruce Peninsula would appoint 2 elected officials, with 1 representative from the Saugeen First Nation and at least 2 provincial appointees and 2 community appointees, resulting in 9 members. Now, in our last option, that would see 3 independent boards, being 1 for Grey County, 1 for Bruce County, and 1 for the Saugeen First Nation. As formerly discussed by this board, the Saugeen First Nation and First Nations throughout Ontario are the only bodies that have the opportunity to opt out of this joint board structure. Therefore, if the Saugeen First Nation chose to, they would not have an obligation to sit on either board or a larger joint board. But out of our conversations on April 27th, they have indicated their interest in participating in the larger joint board.
Madam Clerk,
are options. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
have you made contact with Chippewas and Nawash? Are they interested or not involved in this?
As far as I understand, they are not involved. I did ask our interim commander for clarification as to why they are not involved. But when we commenced these discussions, our interim commander did not identify that nation as one being a part of the Grey Bruce detachment. So I'm unsure if they fall under a different regulation, but I did ask for clarification. I have not received that yet, though.
Would that be maybe because they have their own police force? Don't they police themselves on that?
I believe
Chippewas and Nawash have their own, whereas Saugeen First Nation, I believe, do not. I could be wrong. They are OPP jurisdiction, correct?
yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for clarifying a lot of questions so far, Madam Clerk. I have some questions, but I'm gonna let the board members have their chance to go ahead first. So Barry, I'm gonna start with you. Comments?
I am just gonna sit and listen and then maybe comment later, but I just think that it should be changed a bit, but anyhow, I'll just listen what's going on and go from there.
Thank you. Peter, any comments?
Yes, Brittany, I wrote down a few things here, and you definitely have helped address them, because I didn't feel there was equal representation, and by doing what you just did there, you certainly have leveled that out. I was going to propose that we go like the 8 elected official model was there, but to have 4 community reps and 4 provincial reps and I know you were 4 and 3. That's doesn't matter to me. I'm assuming the 4 and 3 line up with someone would determine who would create a representative, like who would get the provincial representatives, but it would equally be divided out among the 7 townships listed in the thing. They would each get one or the other to make it fair. And so that definitely has addressed a concern. And I did make a note before that a lot of these boards in many of the options were even numbered, and they probably should be considered as odd numbered. And you did address that too, because of comes to a vote, it gets awkward. You could have tie votes. So that certainly got addressed. So my only concern was, so I don't even have any questions now about the rotation going through, because this in fact would help eliminate rotation, because I couldn't figure out how that could be achieved and get a limited representation along with there's no way it could be collaborative. If you don't have equal representation, there's no way that could happen. So I welcome those changes you've made. And it certainly makes option 1 look better in my eyes than it did about an hour ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Madam Clerk, Peter sort of took off part of my reply, was that we had a conversation about a different matter, and this did come up less than probably an hour and a half ago. Since then, you have changed my mind considerably. Now that you've given the complete breakdown of how you're making this up. Because originally I had it down that your option 1 would have had 24 members, but that is not the case. It's 15. makes perfect sense what you're suggesting. The rotation after the next election would change probably with members, or these provincial and community members permanently all the time. I assume council appoints the community members?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will say that there's a lot of things that remain undefined at this time, both locally and at the provincial level, including the impact of the 2022 election on these changes. I will say that whatever decision we decide to move forward with from the Graybruce detachment level, we do have the opportunity to amend it if we find that it doesn't work. So if we move forward with option 1 and it's determined that that board is too large or is not operating effectively, we will have the opportunity to amend our proposal at some point. But again, that remains kind of up in the air at this time. What also remains up in the air is the community and provincial appointments. So as you'll note in my report, I attended a informational seminar hosted by the ministry specifically tailored to these changes. And at that training seminar or webinar, they mentioned that it is likely that the boards would have the opportunity to create their own procedures and identify how the community members would be appointed to this board. So it is my intention to have those procedures created so that the board has the authority to appoint the community members as they see fit. So that way the board can control that collaborative representation to ensure that each municipality is represented equally and fairly.
Okay. Thank you for that. Peter or Barry, go ahead.
So the provincial one, would that, out of them 7 positions, would they rotate, like say provincial would go to Southgate one term and Meaford the next term and Jordan Bluffs the next term and so on? Is that how they want to rotate that, or has that ever been discussed yet?
So thank you for the question, and I wish I had a definite answer for you. I don't. The procedures we will have control over are tailored to the community appointees. So we can tailor those procedures to do just that, to cycle through the community appointees per term. As it stands right now, that is how we handle provincial appointees. So I would assume that that would carry forward. However, the provincial appointee method still remains undefined at this time. But if I were a betting person, I would assume that the provincial appointees would be tailored to the term of each board as they are now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Clerk, you are going to present this to Council of Georgian Bluffs June the 2nd. Can you make sure that in your report that you clarify how the makeup of the board is and so on, because it might save a lot of headaches and questions later?
Yes, and I apologize, given the amount of collaboration that has happened over the course of just a couple weeks. That one slid by me. So I apologize, and I will ensure the most up-to-date version is presented to council.
I don't know if you noticed, but my hair is a lot whiter since I met last time. I really don't want to say, as a chair of the Police Service Board and the mayor of Georgian Bluffs, I can't see any negativity right now against your option 1. And I find it very hard to say that, but I can't not see any negativity. It's you completely changed my mind. It makes perfect sense what you're suggesting. I know you and your clerks have put great effort into this, and I don't want everyone to feel that because the June 7th date, that we're under great pressure, just rush to make a decision. I don't think by this report that you're doing that, and that's good to see that. Members of the Police Service Board, any other comments?
As I said earlier, and I agree with you, Dwight, the option 1, it certainly looks a lot fairer than the one I read in the last little while here. there remain a lot of unknowns, and Brittany's right. It won't until the actual elected board's in place, and you can hammer out what the whole functionality and what the training, because the training part of this is huge for both provincial and community reps, which is certainly a concern that that those options, like when would that be addressed? I can't imagine you'd consider the training till the board's in place, because there's no point in training until that point happens. So no, I've certainly, I as well think this is a far better representation than the other two options that were presented now that we have the amendments.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
agree with that, and I think that that this board, or the new board elected to be moved in pretty quickly. Well, like another month or two, you believe, or no?
2022, I believe, is the date.
Will it probably follow the? Yeah, I thought I read the spring of 2022 or something.
I believe it's next year. The new board will be put in place. This board will stay in place, I assume, until the end of the year, Madam Clerk. Am I correct in saying that?
Again, everything is kind of up in the air at this point. I've heard September of this year being the fall of this year. It could be as soon as that. It could be 2022. I think it all depends on how quickly we move through the proposal process and how quickly the ministry is able to address any issues that come out of this consultation process. So I'll keep you posted, but right now I'm kind of unsure as to the deadlines, and I'm unsure as to the training deadlines as well, when that will happen or when we need to be prepared to address the financial impacts of said training.
Well, this and our conference is coming up this week. They're going to provide training, but that training won't be no good then when the new board is formed, correct? Or who knows?
Yes.
Barry, any training you get is probably good.
Yeah.
No, there's a lot of unknowns, and I agree 100% that we can just go a step at a time, and I feel comfortable supporting option one now, and hopefully, Brittany, you can explain it in detail to our council. And I think if you do the same thing as what you did here this morning, it should be no problem explaining it to council. So, is there any other discussion, Barry?
I would just like to make a motion that we accept.
Barry, we already have we have a motion on the floor now.
Oh, you do? Okay, sorry.
And you moved it?
Well, sorry?
You moved the motion?
Yeah.
It's on the floor?
Yeah.
If there's no other discussion on the motion before us, we'll maybe I'll ask for the vote. Madam Clerk, the show of hands for this vote, okay? All in favor of the motion before us, a show of hands, please. In favor? The motion is carried. Barry, is there any other motion you want upon the floor, or you just wanting to make sure that?
Well, I took my blood pressure pill this morning, which I didn't need because of what happened there. Good, Brittany explained it pretty well. So, no, I'm okay with it now. Thank you.
Well, when you have a clerk that's smiling, that's good. Okay, we'll move on to our agenda then, unfinished business. Madam Clerk, I need to ask you a question. I don't know if it relates to our board meeting today or not, but I just want to bring it up. Is to do with this extra paid for OPP for a couple of weekends. Could you comment on that, where that's going to go, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if the other board members are unaware, the OPP has requested that each municipality within the Grey Bruce detachment remit extra funds for additional services over a couple of weekends throughout the summer. So basically what the OPP detachment has informed us of is that they've seen an increase or an uptick in activity due to the COVID-19 pandemic throughout the Grey Bruce region. So they are requesting additional funds atop of the funding that we provide on an annual basis through our contract to do extra duties on weekends throughout the summer. So I am preparing a report that will be presented at your June 8th meeting for your consideration as to what this will look like from a financial perspective, as in addition to the services that they'll be providing. Upon your approval, it will then go to our council at their last meeting in June for approval. Should council approve the additional funds, the OPP will then schedule the additional weekend patrols.
Thank you for that, Brittany. Barry?
I just thought that they put extra people on patrol last year and the year before. I believe that the money they were getting from ticketing and that they had extra funds from the province to add extra officers on.
Barry, this was a conversation I had with the commander. They're looking at various ways to try and look after traffic conditions going up to Peninsula and all the way from A to B all the way through. And this was an option that they'd come up with to maybe put on 2 other paid officers strictly for traffic control for a weekend, and each municipality would pay towards it. You pay a sum, I don't know what the sum was, $3,500 or something like that. Maybe it was 55, something, I forget what the figure is. But anyway, it's just another option the OPP were trying to put out to help with this problem over and above everything else. That's what it's about.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
I got to apologize, Mr. CEO. I never even asked you to speak. Any comments on anything we talked about this morning?
No comments, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I would ask is on the report that Brittany's going to work on, do you get to specify which weekend over the summer months, or is it a coordinated effort? Because if everyone, for example, asks for July 1st weekend, there's not going to be enough police officers to go around. So is there a coordinated, you'll take one weekend, I'll take another weekend, and another municipality take the next weekend?
I believe Madam Clerk, talking to the commander, she never really specified what weekend you get. She was just trying to look after X number of weekends during the summer months. And I assume they would look after who is on what weekend. I don't think they'll say that this is George and Bus weekend and so watch the George and Bus on. They'll just schedule them as officers for certain weekends, but we're paying for it. Am I correct in saying that?
You are absolutely correct. Yes, we don't necessarily have the choice as to which weekend we are provided extra services with. As you say, Mr. Mayor, it will be a coordinated effort throughout the Grey Bruce detachment.
I think it's a good thing. It's I can see why they're concerned. They're doing every effort they possibly can to try and control the situation going up there. It's not just going up to Peninsula. It'll be going really from say King City all the way up to here. Like it's traffic all the way they're going to look at. So if we've no other unfinished business, no other new business here today, our next board meeting, Madam Clerk, and we will have it on June 8th. Is that correct? Yeah. Barry, you want to say something?
I just wondering that this is the council there a couple of weeks ago, and that the council passed a motion to drop the speed limit on the town line on 17B, I believe it was.
No, we didn't, Barry. It was it's a county road, so it'll be going to Great County to look at and so on. And it is on Thursday's county council meeting, just so you're aware of. It is on the effort to talk about. It's a county.
I just wondered why it didn't come to the police services board and then back to council. I just wondered why, because it was a police issue.
Well, it was a delegation that comes to George and Bluffs Council, making them aware of a problem, and they had that right to come as a delegation to council. And then council, if it had been our jurisdiction, we would have probably passed it on to probably the police service board, but In this case, it's a county issue. So George and Bless are waiting to see what the county are going to do to handle it. And you do have 2 county reps on that county council, which we will be able to have our say in support of what this presentation was.
Okay,
So Madam Clerk, our next meeting is June 8th. If we have no other business here today, it's a great day to go out and play golf and have a great time, so I need one more motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Moved by Veery. All in favor? We're now adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brittany. Thanks, Al.
Have a good day, everyone.
Great.